Then he said, "Bring it near to me, that I may eat of my son's game and bless you." So he brought it near to him, and he ate. And he brought him wine, and he drank.
And he brought him wine, and he drank. Do I want to go with the alcohol stance? Or do I want to zoom out and discuss the overall story? Alright, today's episode is going to be interesting for two reasons. One, I kind of have two kind of topics going on here with this verse. One is the overall story of the whole Jacob, Esau, blessing, curse, tricking your brother. So I kind of have that whole thing that I feel like I do need to address. But at the same time, I kind of have the elephant in the room where we show a prominent man of God being brought wine and drinking. I mean, do I really want to get into the whole alcohol wine subject, knowing how split even the Christian community is on that topic specifically, and how much trouble saying the wrong thing can get me in? But on the flip side, I've noticed myself lately pulling out a lot on the verses, and sometimes I have to, because again, when the verse literally just says a guy was sleeping under a tree and an angel said get up and eat, I have to pull out and kind of zoom out and take a larger view. Otherwise I have to skip the verse, and I'd end up missing talking about the entire subject. I did not recognize him because his hands were hairy like his brother Esau's hands. Bless him. You are my son. Quite the wine verse. May God give you the dew of heaven. As soon as Isaac had finished blessing Jacob. I think I'm just going to stick to the verse. So I'm going to do my best today to answer and kind of discuss both of those, kind of like a dual topical thing going on here. But also, there's another reason this episode is going to be a bit interesting today. Today I'm actually headed to a men's convention with a pastor, some youth students, and then some other men of the church. And so I decided to take advantage, because on the way there we're stopping at Dulles Air and Space Museum, part of the Smithsonian. It's outside of DC though, it's in a different part of Virginia. Been there once before, it's really awesome. Since I'm going to be having such an interesting day, I decided I'm going to shoot this episode as if it was a Casey Neistat vlog. Now if you don't know who Casey is, he's a very popular, very well-known YouTuber. He's got a vlog, but he's also a filmmaker, so he has a very specific style. And if you go and check out some of his videos, you'll notice I've been actually borrowing some elements from that for this entire show. The first few episodes were just me sitting here, very Philip DeFranco, another big YouTuber who stylistically influenced me years ago with the whole cutting back and forth. And I decided to kind of up the game a little bit, considering that I'm assuming the majority of you are high schoolers and young college age, and you're used to things being more kinetic, not just a guy sitting down talking for 30 minutes in front of, camera. That would be very much like a sermon. I made a very specific effort. You notice the camera's moving a lot more lately. Show me doing things, getting up and moving around. So I've already been heavily borrowing elements from the guy. But today, we're gonna treat the entire WORDy episode as if it was an episode of his vlog. I'm pretty excited, so let's get started. Okay, so let's start first with the whole family dynamics section. So, Jacob and Esau were brothers, and there was a little bit of a rivalry between them going all the way back to the actual time of their birth. You know what, actually, I have a better idea of how to show this all to you and make this all make sense. These are the generations of Isaac, Abraham's son. Abraham fathered Isaac, and Isaac was 40 years old when he took Rebekah, the daughter of Bethuel, the Aramean of Paddan Aram, the sister of Laban and the Aramean, to be his wife. And Isaac prayed to the Lord for his wife, because she was barren, and the Lord granted his prayer, and Rebekah his wife conceived. The children struggled together within her, and she said, "If it is thus, why is this happening to me?" So she went to inquire of the Lord, and the Lord said to her, "Two nations are in your womb, and two people from within you shall be divided. The one shall be stronger than the other. The older shall serve the younger." When her days to give birth were completed, behold, there were twins in her womb. The first came out red, all his body like a hairy cloak, so they called his name Esau. Afterwards, his brother came out with his hands holding Esau's heel, so his name was called Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old when she bore them. When the boys grew up, Esau was a skillful hunter, a man of the field, while Jacob was a quiet man, dwelling in tents. Isaac loved Esau because he ate of his game, but Rebekah loved Jacob. Once, when Jacob was cooking stew, Esau came in from the field, and he was exhausted. And Esau said to Jacob, "Let me eat some of that red stew, for I am exhausted." Therefore his name was called Edom. Jacob said, "Sell me your birthright now." Esau said, "I am about to die. Of what use is a birthright to me?" Jacob said, "Swear to me now." So he swore to him and sold his birthright to Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau bread and lentil stew, and he ate and drank and rose and went his way. Thus Esau despised his birthright. Okay, hopefully that helped, and that made a little more sense than me sitting here just verbally retelling the story. Hopefully you like the animation. Now, the first part that I want to address is what Jacob and Esau, kind of their actions and the repercussions of their actions. About ready to get some barking here. So first off we see that Jacob kind of shady at first glance. It looks like he totally just stole the blessing from his brother. He ended up, we kind of see him as the younger brother who wasn't, you know, portrayed as being as manly as the other brother. Hey doggies. And that's what my original thought was. They're actually really beautiful dogs. Not my cup of tea, but they're beautiful creatures nonetheless. Anyways, so at first it seems like he would be in the wrong. Like he lied, he deceived, he had stole the birthright. But regardless of whether God thought that was the best thing to do or not, it was honored. If you flash forward, he ends up getting the birthright. And the lineage of Israel, so we go from Abraham to Isaac, it doesn't go to Esau. It skips him. And history all but forgets him. I mean, he's got the story, but the lineage of Israel skips over to Jacob. Okay, so what's the significance of this? How does it play into our daily lives? Well, here's what I pull out of this. Sorry, there's a lot of like wildlife moving around this morning. Here's what I get out of this. Obviously, I don't condone doing things illegal or immoral or anything like that. I feel like we need to definitely be led by the Spirit. But at the same time, I feel like the story really motivates me to be bold, to go after the blessings of God, to go after things, not to sit around and wait for the person who's supposed to be the, I don't want to say leader because that makes it sound like you should go against what your pastor's doing if you feel like he's not listening to God or whatever. I mean, if you feel that, you shouldn't be at that church, but you know what I mean. Like, doesn't mean that you should, your youth pastor isn't doing enough of your favorite kind of activity, Bible study, events, evangelism, whatever, so you're going to lead a coup. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about when it comes to following after the heart of God, following after the blessings of God, pursuing the things that He's calling you to do, that we need to be tenacious. We need to not step back and go, I'm 14, I'm under the covering of my parents, so I'm going to kind of just live off of their faith. If God's calling you, you feel like a burden of missions, and you're 14, and you can't go off and be a missionary, that doesn't mean you have to just wait till you're an adult. Chances are if you do that, you're going to lose that burden, lose that desire, and never end up doing that. What you need to do is pray about how could you do that now? Be tenacious, be like Jacob. Figure out a way, I can't go to Syria and be a missionary because I'm 13, 14 years old, and I'm still in school. But how can you raise awareness? Like how you can get involved in, Assemblies of God, we have Speed the Light, we've got different missionary programs. You can support your missionary, you can pray for your missionary, you can start up a YouTube channel if you feel like you're a YouTuber and highlight missionaries and discuss missions work, raise awareness. There's a huge need for kind of starting that passion with our the younger generation. Missions is something that, and again, at least in Assemblies of God, I know the same is for Southern Baptist, SBC, the whole, guy almost ran me over. It's kind of for most generations has been woven into the fabric of those denominations, and we're kind of getting away from that, and we're kind of focusing on others. Missions work and whatnot doesn't seem to have the same emphasis that it used to. So you then could have that burden. You could go with that. You could run with that. It's like a giant dog that way. I'm gonna turn around and go that way. You can run with that. My point is, you don't have to sit around and wait and do nothing and not take action. Jacob was second. Jacob didn't have the birthright. Jacob should have been the little footnote in history, but he stood up. He saw his brother was, the Bible said that he despised his birthright. He sold it for lunch. He obviously didn't have the same passion that Jacob did. And Jacob rose up and he took action. He took imperfect action. He made some mistakes. He did some things that weren't exactly done the right way. But at the end of the day, would you rather be Esau, waiting for the right time, waiting for the birthright to kick in, waiting, have fun at school, kids, waiting for everything to be just right, and at the end of the day, it didn't go so well for him? Or would you rather be Jacob, who said yes to what was on his heart, stood up, took what he felt or what he wanted and felt what he needed to do? Yes, he made some mistakes. Abraham made mistakes. King David made mistakes. The apostles made mistakes. Paul called out Peter for being in error and causing division amongst the church. But that doesn't mean, Peter shouldn't have waited until he had it all figured out theologically and figured out the whole, race relationship between the Jews and the Gentiles before he started ministering. Otherwise, the church wouldn't have been kicked off the way it was supposed to, or more likely, God would have used someone else. So I want to encourage you as teenagers, as college kids, young adults watching this, or even youth pastors if you're watching this, to not be paralyzed and not to be immobilized and basically bound by waiting for the right time, waiting for things to be perfect. Get in the habit of taking imperfect action. The Bible is full of people who take imperfect action. Now, I will preface that by saying imperfect action balanced with daily time in the Word, daily time in prayer with God, a habit of repentance when you do mess up and you do hear it wrong and you do get it wrong. So you need to obviously have it balanced that way and not go off and become a crazy person who's just doing whatever in the name of God. That's how things like the Crusades happen. Okay, I think I've covered that point well enough. So before I get back to the barking dogs here, one last thing I want to say on that. A lot of times it's your in-between ministry that leads you to your eventual ministry. So you may think that, well, when you get older, you're going to become a politician and you're going to affect change through the law, or you're going to become a doctor and you'll be able to pray over and witness to your patients, or you're going to become this, that, or what have you. And rather than waiting till you get there, a lot of times it's what you do in between, the taking a leadership position in your youth ministry, volunteering for something, the influence you build, the skills you build. They're either going to prepare you for when you do get to your eventual adult life calling, I'll use for lack of better terms, or a lot of times it will be what guides you. I thought I was going to be a Hollywood film director. It turns out I'm now a daily vlogger. Those skills that I thought I was going to use to make blockbuster movies and get to share my faith in between movies on the press circuit, on interviews, I'm now bringing forth through for years my youth ministry online with WORDy, preaching the word, bringing it every single morning on my vlog over on Youth Factor TV. So I never would have pictured myself doing this and never could have prepared myself, but what prepared me was the years of trying to do something now while I waited for the other thing, and then eventually, God has used that and blessed that to be this. So don't lose out on your future possibilities because you're waiting for your current situation to line up with your future dream. This entire conversation actually makes me think of the story of Joseph. The kid with the coat of many colors. So when he was very young, he had multiple dreams showing him, God revealing his eventual future and his eventual ministry to him, and showing his influence that he would have. And then, of course, like we all do when we're young, he immediately tried to run out into that. He immediately tried to step into that. And, it didn't go so well. He was discouraged. He didn't see that happening right away. When all the bad things and all the distractions and all the delays happened, rather than giving up and saying, you know what, forget this. This isn't what this is supposed to be. Or saying, you know what, I'm just going to chill. I'm just going to be a good little Christian. Or, I don't even think they were Jewish back then. Being a good little, I'll just say Christian for the sake of this conversation, in context that makes sense for you. And just waited and just tried not to sin and tried to do the right thing and just, be not to offend anyone and keep in his own little bubble and wait for God to call him out and use him in something bigger, did what he could then. He took advantage of the opportunities to use the blessings and the giftings God had given him, and that eventually prepared him. So he ministered and did the best he could in Potiphar's house, rose to the top, got taken back down, got put in prison. Rather than moping, I don't know what those first few days were like, probably weren't his best days, I don't know, maybe they were, but he didn't just pull back then after a second time he gets knocked down and a second time he gets delayed from his eventual destiny and the vision God had given him. He continues to operate in his gifts. He continues to honor God with his gifts and his abilities, and he rises to the top again, right? Raises? Coffee, cream, Joseph. All to say, that positioned and prepared him for being able to be called in front of Pharaoh and being able to be used by God to, not just save his own life, to save many lives, to save, in my opinion, to drastically affect history. I think that the world would look significantly different if that famine was allowed to just wipe out the entire area. And over the course of history, billions upon billions of people would have just died. Entire family lines would have been wiped out. It would have been catastrophic for the way things have ended up now. Who knows? We may have ended up in some very bleak, post-apocalyptic, what is wrong with words today, version of where we are now. But God used him. He was able to put when I talk about Steve Jobs when I put a dent in the universe, this kid put a huge dent in all of time, all of history, by being faithful in the small things, and I'll just say it, in the crappy situations of life that do not match up with what God had shown him, and he was faithful in them anyways. Also reminds me of the story of David, but rather than going into that myself, I'm going to let my buddy Stephen Furtick talk about it.
Now Jesse, this is 1 Samuel 17:17. It says that this giant from Gath named Goliath was confronting and defying the people of God for 40 days. And every day he would taunt them. But Jesse said to his son David, Verse 17 is kind of confusing because Jesse must have forgotten that he was talking to a future king. Because what he asked him to do was so menial. He said, take this ephah of roasted grain and these 10 loaves of bread for your brothers and hurry to their camp. And David could have said, who do you think you're talking to? Didn't you hear what Samuel said about me? I am a man of potential and purpose. I don't have time to run your little errands. I'm not trying to take bread and cheese to the same brothers who didn't even bring me into the room when Samuel came to choose a king. But this is the test, see, to see if David will do the basic things. Sometimes we want God to use us to do a big thing, and we won't even do the basics. Talk to me, somebody. How in the world can God use us to do something big, and we won't even do something basic? I love David's heart because the story could have stopped right here if he had said, I'm not doing that. I'm a king. I'm not doing that. You're demeaning to me. I'm not doing that. You know all the ways that we disobey God. These little things that he asks us to do. Call your sister and tell her you're sorry. Reach out to somebody who looks different than you and listen to them about their struggle. It's funny to me, some of us want to kill Goliath, but we don't want to tend sheep, and we don't want to make deliveries. We want to see big victories. But how in the world can God use us to kill giants if we can't even follow simple instructions?
Okay, just a disclaimer, Steve and I aren't actually friends. I don't know him. I mean, I've listened to a lot of his sermons. He's been an inspiration to me. I haven't listened to him really in a few years. Saw this clip the other day, and I think it fits perfectly in this episode. Steven, if you are watching and you do want to be friends, give me a call, bro. We'll get together for coffee or something. We'll hang out. All right. So now we have that part out of the way. And we've discussed that part of the verse. We're going to move on to discussing the alcohol portion.